It's a
Hey,
very,
everybody.
it's a very nice mask.
Well, thank you. I might put it back on before the show's over.
Hey everyone.
How's everyone feeling?
Look, I don't know if you saw our preview earlier, but we cleaned up nice. Malik,
Doing
you're looking rather dapper in this pandemic.
Why, thank you. And I try. I'm the boss where I am,
Um,
so I have to present.
yeah, look official. And I'm,
Oh, man.
just the queen at home.
Let's see.
That's
Nice.
it. Huh?
What is that background that you have going on?
Oh, this is my chair, my little swing chair.
Oh, so there's some backstory to this chair, everybody.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I just like to point out that I'm inspiration for this chair, partial inspiration. Tiffany will tell you that there's another inspiration, but what sold the deal is when she came all the way to California, saw my place, saw that I had a nice, what is my chair red? I think mine is red. She sat
Right.
in it and it was love at first sight. She's like, I'm getting one. Tell me where you got this from. And then this thing
And then
happens sometimes
I
with Tiffany. Go ahead.
I I, I kind of forgot about it, and then I was watching a Jenny Han's movie, "To All the Boys Ever Love," and Laura Jean had a swing chair in her room, like on the side, and I was like, "Oh right, my swing chair." And I went and I bought basically the same exact swing chair except in brown to actually match my to match my apartment because a big red swing chair wasn't gonna fly in here. But yeah, so that is sort of like the background. I mean, like I guess that kind of like adds on to our story, our friendship story. Because me and Malik have been friends since our freshman year of college. So we're going on like 20 years of annoying each other. Um, so I love him
Yeah.
dearly.
Oh, ditto Tiff. Ditto Tiff. Wow, it has been a long time. So Tiffany has this way of like saying things, and then you kind of like, okay, and then like she'll hit you back maybe like a week or so later, like, no, but I was serious. So what's the info? I'm like, well, you meant that. So this chair is one of those examples of that.
Yes. And I'm also holding my new dog. Say
Yes, new
hi.
addition to the family.
Say hi. This is Sunny, and he wants to bite my face off, as puppies do. But you guys aren't here to just, I guess, like just listen to us babble. You're here because of Let Me Hear a Rhyme. Well, actually, we probably could just babble as well too, because for sure, that's what everyone else is
Where else are you going? Where else are you guys going? But yes, we're here for this very thing. Can't touch this. Oh, 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 oh.
doing.
And to represent with my merch that Tiffany put together
Oh,
for
that's
the
that. I couldn't really see because there was like a little glare there, but oh, that's nice. I like that.
yeah, we this all was present at the launch party, the great launch event that Tiffany put together. Had all of these buttons made, even the crown, which is my favorite because this is just all purpose. Any
All
day
right,
you can wear this,
the little crown on the book.
boom. Any day you can wear this pen, remind yourself of your greatness. It's beautiful.
Right. So we're actually coming up on a year anniversary for this book. So Let Me Hear Ryan came out May 21st of 2019, which is actually Biggie Smalls Day, which sort of fits the entire theme of this book. For those who haven't read Let Me Hear Rhyme, I will give you a sort of breakdown and then we'll kind of discuss our creative process. And Malik will give us a show. He's like, what? And then we're going to try to open up for some questions as well, too, which I think we could see the questions on somehow, but we'll figure that out. Anyway, so let me hear a rhyme. Best kind of explanation for it. Let me hear a rhyme is about three teens who plot to turn their murdered best friend slash brother into a rap superstar by pretending he's still alive. I pitch it as Weekend at Bernie's meets Notorious. So if you're kind of old enough to sort of know those two movies, which actually, I mean, Notorious, I feel like everyone should probably know because there's been so many like hip hop movies. But I would understand if you've never seen Weekend at Bernie's. But it is sort of like this kind of like funny slapstick comedy about like these two guys pretending this guy is still alive and sort of kind of keeping up the charade, and it's kind of wild and crazy. And that's sort of what happens in this book. The book takes place in 1998 in Brooklyn, particularly in Bed-Stuy, in the Brevoort Projects area. So if you're familiar with Brevoort Projects, that's actually sort of dead center-ish in Bed-Stuy. And there's a lot of actually like there are some famous people from there. I always like to mention that like the rapper Fabulous is from there. So it's kind of interesting to sort of go back in time, back to 1998 and sort of rediscover music again. Particularly from that era, we call it, the unofficial name for it, we call it the Phoenix Year. And why we consider it that is because the Phoenix Year is sort of symbolizes sort of this rebirth of hip hop. It happened, let's see, if we look at our history, both Biggie and Tupac had passed away, and there was a sort of question about like what is going to happen to hip hop at that point. Is it going to kind of go back into the underground, into the shadows, or is it going to rise out the ashes like a phoenix? And that's exactly what it did. Some of the greatest hip hop artists of our time, of all time, emerged in that year. We had DMX, who came out with 2 albums. We had Lauryn Hill. That's like one of my favorite, despite, her being always late. But still, who else do we got that year, Malik?
Who are out? We have Big Pun. 98 was just such a big year for hip hop. Noriega, DMX was running things. Cameron came out. The South came, Master P and the whole No Limit movement. So we saw a lot of big things. Missy emerged to greatness, lots of things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So. Yes. And that's how we felt that the kind of idea from this book sort of came in a conversation about, what would happen when we sort of lose our greats in hip hop history and what that would actually sort of look like in a sense. Malik, you okay?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. No, that's my computer. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it moved a little bit. I was like, hey, what happened? Anyway.
Earthquake.
Anyway, break. So we were having a conversation about what would happen, to sort of like the legends of particular people's neighborhoods and stuff. And, what do we do about unsung heroes and what happens to their legacy? And, what happens if, some of these people who passed away, what if they were still alive? Would they have made it to the NBA? Would they have, become like one of the greatest rappers of all time? Like what would have happened if some of those people didn't die early? So this book really encompasses a lot of emotions. It talks about friendship, particularly friends who really want to see their friend, shine, even though he passed away. It talks about loyalty to those friends and to their neighborhood and to their community. It also talks about grief and how you unpack grief, what you do with grief, and how you can turn grief into somewhat of a project and make it your mission. And it also talks about hip hop, and it's also very much a love letter to Brooklyn, where I'm from, where I'm currently sitting in the pandemic. So yeah, that's sort of the kind of gist of Let Me Hear a Rhyme, and I can go into a bit more detail. Malik, what do you think?
I think also what it touches on is the difference between I think this is where Tiffany gets really layered with her writing sometimes, these nuanced points that you really have to appreciate once you finish a whole story. It's like as much as it's about dedication to one another and how to stay together in all of these relationships. We see romantic relationships within these stories and friendship relationships and those and family and those go throughout. But even in that, each character has their own personal journey that they realize towards the end. So it's amazing. You get these stories within the stories of okay, I'm about my area, I'm about my cluster of my social circle, but I'm also about what's next for me, and I got to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge point there.
And what I love about this story, even though like we're like kind of like the writers of the story, and one of the best things about the creative process is like things sort of change like while you're writing and while you're like going through the process. So some stuff like we like were discovering while we were, you know, in the middle of creating this is I think it was interesting to see how unfortunately in a lot of ways not much has changed. You know, the way we grieve our superstars, our, you know, our musical legends hasn't changed in 20 years or 30 years. The same way that we mourned the death of Tupac and the death of Biggie is the same way kids and communities are mourning the deaths of like Nipsey Hussle. Just to give like an example of how that sort of plays. And so one of the things that even though this is a young adult novel, it's 100% relatable. And it's one of those it's a touching point. It's a connector because 1998 is technically considered historical fiction. So this is actually an historical fiction novel. And people always get like, 1998 was like yesterday. And I was like, no, that was like over 20 years ago. So it's historical fiction now. But what's wild about it is that you can now talk to kids about hip hop and like both the parents can remember everything that happened in this novel. And so parents and kids can kind of come together and be like, oh, I remember when that happened. And then there's like it's a conversation piece. And so
Yeah.
there's all this connective tissue that happens between family units and nuclear units and community units, even between teachers and students. Because even when I always like to make this joke that in 1998, Britney Spears came out. And along with like all these like wild music videos that people started doing and like that was sort of a huge like stepping stone for music in general. It was one of like the largest years for like the MTVs of the world. So I think it's a fun novel. It has some darkness in it. It talks a lot about grief and death, but there's also like lightness and humor. And that's one of the things about, you know, Black people in general is like, you know, we will crack a joke in the middle of a pandemic like we're having right now.
I think every scene where there was some kind of dark moment, there was a joke crack. They could literally have just been winded running from the cops and a joke is cracked. Beat up in the studio, in the streets of Brooklyn somewhere, and a joke is cracked. Like, man, look at that knot on your head though. You know, so and you know this story is dark because Tiffany's first words, as soon as she started the description just now, was their murdered best friend. Murder. She didn't say deceased. She said murder. So you know what this book is about.
Right.
I asked Tiffany in the last year, I said, do all of your stories have to involve someone dying or some kind of death? She said, yes. To some extent. You know?
I mean, to a degree, I guess, somewhat. I mean, I do write thrillers for a living, thriller and mystery novels for a living. This is sort of, this book particular was a slight departure for me in terms of it not being so much of a thrill. I mean, there is thrilling aspects of it, but it's not in the category of a true thriller novel, crime mystery novel. Um, However, there is, you know, those aspects of, you know, a clock running, you know, and they're running against a clock, not a clock running, but running against a clock. So that's something that I encompass in all of my novels. I want things to be tense, and I want it to feel gritty and raw. And I also want to like dive into communities as well too. I want to talk about, you know, what it's like to live, you know, particularly in the projects in Brooklyn, and how it's not, you know, kind of turning stereotypes on its head in a sense, because a lot of times people think like, oh, the city is so dangerous, and you know, this is so dangerous, and you know, oh, they must be all living in squalor and stuff like that, when real talk, like a lot of these communities are communities. They're very like, it takes a village to raise a child. They all know each other's names. They're all helping each other out in one way or another, and I think that that is something that is missed, and not really a light is not shined upon, you know, in television shows and movies. So that is one of my main things I like to do. I do like to kind of turn stereotypes on its head and sort of show kind of like the beauty and the struggle in a sense.
Yeah, well put.
Oh, yeah, well, thank you. You know, sometimes I try to get it together. You know, my mind's been feeling like mush lately, to be honest. Like I've been struggling to create and write and everything in the midst of all of this. But it's always fun to kind of like, one, this is actually our first like live together. We haven't done one of these yet because we honestly we just were kind of like, you know, oh, this is gonna be over in like a couple of weeks. So we didn't have to worry about it so much. But this is kind of fun, especially since we don't really get to see each other since we live across the country from each other.
Yeah, shout out to everybody in New York. I know New York is really ground zero right now. So
Right.
everybody out there, I think you guys are being incredibly strong dealing with everything you're dealing with. And so my thoughts are always with the whole city. Because what a time. What a time to be alive. This is a book, this is a movie, this is every movie we've ever seen in one. All we're
Right.
missing is we're missing aliens and zombies. That's all that's missing.
Which none of that we actually want.
Right.
I don't even. I mean, I think we just have enough with what we're dealing with right now. I don't think we need anything more.
Yeah.
But you know, in some ways, we are also prepared because we've seen this movie before.
Yeah. The books and the TED Talks that are going to come from this this time in life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be. I'm actually looking forward to that because everyone goes through, and even just to kind of loop it back to the book, everyone kind of goes through struggles and grief and everything differently. Like you react differently to it. So I think it's sort of just kind of interesting. It'll be interesting to see how everyone sort of survived this in a way.
Yeah.
Oh,
being survived.
strive and survive. Before we, so Malik was going to, I was going to read a couple of pages, and Malik was going to rhyme one of the rhymes in the book. Rhyme one of the rhymes in the book.
That's how my mom says it.
Yeah, like the rapidy rap, hippity hop. You know, I'm old lady.
You gonna do one of your rap songs? You gonna sing a song?
Rapidy raps. But before I get into that, I wanted to also actually talk a little bit more about the characters in the book. So there's three main characters. There is Jasmine, who is the girl in the middle with the two Afro puffs. There's Quadir, that's the one with the yellow jacket. And then there's Jarrell, and that's the one with the Tim's leaning against the speaker. So there are three main characters, and they sort of represent three aspects of hip hop. Hip hop has a lot of different layers and facets, and so we have Jasmine, who sort of represents
conscious.
I'm sorry.
The conscious.
The conscious like rappers. Give us some examples, Malik.
So like the Black Star, some would say Lauryn Hill, you know, that's going to be a big recurring reference. So like that, they're going to have this content, you know, that Mos Def kind of.
Yeah. We have Jarrell, and Jarrell sort of represents the mainstream. Who would you put in that one, Malik?
That's your glitzy, radio friendly stuff. So that's all your bad boy stuff right there. Yeah.
And that's like bad boy rappers under like Diddy, which
Yeah.
before he was named Pop Daddy. So that's
This
also and
definitely,
then
yeah.
and then Quadir, he represents more.
He's in the middle, right? So he's more like that mixtape kind of like not quite
Yeah,
conscious, not quite. They might be on the radio every now and then. So like Tiffany always says, like Mob Deep kind of,
yeah.
So he'd be the one that would come to school with like a cannabis Mob Deep or a Nori or something like that. Where Jarrell's like, hey, have you heard that new DMX with Mace on it? Something like that. So,
I think at one point we were calling him like the backpack rapper. Um,
we
but then
were.
he dips into all three. And I think that's what was fun about doing this project is that all three of them, even though they have their own like very distinct personalities and their music sort of coincides with that, they all have massive amount of respect for each other's personalities and also each other's music taste. So even though Jarrell may be only listening to the Locks, he also loves Nas and he loves like the Roots and Common and stuff like that. So it's sort of like this mutual respect, which really is a huge representation of how hip hop sort of became to be. Because even though we could all be like, and I'm saying we because I am a part of hip hop in a sense, because I am a child of hip hop. We all could be battling about, who's like the greatest rapper alive right now and stuff like that. But when it comes to any other music, it's literally like us against them. Um, it's our music, it's our culture against whoever is trying to like put down upon our culture. So I think that's it.
Especially,
Huh?
yeah. So go ahead.
No,
Continue.
so I was thinking that that's sort of a part of the reason why I loved having these three characters sort of um I don't know. I guess I just loved seeing them sort of work together, trying to solve problems, and that they each would do handle a problem differently, but they all kind of bonded together and talks a little bit about more friendship and loyalty.
Yeah. I like what you said about hip hop versus everybody, especially back then, because I think at that point, country music was still like the leading music, and hip hop was like breaking down doors left and right,
Mm-hmm.
TRL and just hitting pop charts for the first time. So you have Diddy to thank for a lot of that. So it's amazing to see. I love that Mary Jane, Miss Cook, put up a question for her students. I believe it says a few weeks ago you guys were predicting how your characters would be handling the pandemic on Twitter. Is your answer still the same for Quadir, Jasmine, and Jarrell? What a great question. So hope you guys are
So
responding to that.
on Twitter, I was saying someone that it may have been Angie Thomas who wrote The Hate You Give and On the Come Up. And she was like, how would your characters handle this pandemic? Like, what would they be doing? And my honest answer was that Jarrell, Quadir, and Jasmine probably wouldn't be doing much more than they're doing now. Like, they wouldn't leave Brooklyn, same way I'm not leaving Brooklyn. They wouldn't leave their neighborhood, and they'd be more like kind of concerned about like, where can I get my bacon, egg, and cheese from? And, sort of
Yeah.
still vibing out to music and still kind of being home.
Jarrell would take it the hardest.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Because
I can hear him calling Quadir, like, I got to get out of this house. My brothers are killing me.
I feel like everyone also is like feeling this way too. Like, I gotta get out of this house with all these kids and my husband and my dog. Like, everyone's driving me crazy. So yeah.
So you wanna get into it?
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
So
Grab your books at home if you have yours.
yeah. Um. So I'm going to read from the end of this. So now another character in the story who's sort of well, he is a character, except he has passed away. Steph, their friend, who they're trying to kind of bring his music, to life and to get him signed for a record deal. His chapters are sort of interspersed in between the other characters' chapters, and written in third person. So I am reading this chapter from actually the chapter that describes Biggie Small's funeral. And the three boys that actually went to the funeral, they skipped school and they waited. And this is actually a real event that happened. A lot of kids skipped school to go to Biggie Small's funeral because they drove the hearse through Bed-Stuy, through the streets of Bed-Stuy, and past his like childhood home. So a lot of people gathered around that street to actually witness and see basically hip hop history. And so they're talking, but unfortunately, to piggyback off of that, unfortunately, once the hearse went by, and everyone's, was very sad, but then they started celebrating, they started playing music, and then the police decided to shut down, that one moment of joy for everyone. And it was such a tragic moment because everyone was in mourning and the police were sort of shutting everything down. So this is a scene sort of at the end of that where they just ramped the police and now they're back in Brevoort. And they're sort of just kind of like, they can't believe that any of this had happened. So I'm going to read.
What page?
Oh, this is like Bible. I'm like, Psalms 23. So you're gonna do page 27. I'm gonna start like page 25.
Okay.
All right.
Oh wait, you want me to read 27? I thought I got to pick which part I did.
Nope.
It's hard out here. Okay.
Right.
So starting from page 25, everyone who's reading along.
Who's reading along? Ready? Steph leaned against the light pole, gazing at Brevoort across the street. Biggie playing out speakers of almost every other window. Son, there were mad people out there, Jarrell said, leaning against the brick wall. Even white people. So much love for Big. And you saw all them cameras and reporters, Cordier added, squatting down on an empty black milk crate. It's going to be all over the news tonight. Steph remained silent, lost in his own thoughts, the weight of grief settling like dust upon his skin. How could he lose the two men that shaped him? Why do the people he loved gotta die? And how does he protect everyone who's left who's important to him? Yeah. Cordier glanced up at his friend, cocking his head to the side. He always noticed when Steph drifted too far and had to fish him back out. You all right, kid? Steph sighed. I just can't believe he's gone. He should have never went to Cali. He should have stayed his ass right here in Brooklyn. Cats took him out on some revenge type shit when he never did nothing to nobody. Cordier spat a few sunflower seeds on the concrete. Yo, deadass, he said, cautious to the ears around him that could brand him a traitor. This whole East Coast, West Coast beef never made sense to me. They even said in Vibe, it was a bunch of he said, she said shit. And look at what it cost us, two of the best rappers alive. He shook his head. Tupac was a man, and I was too shook to listen to him because cats were wildin'. Why can't I rep for Bad Boy but fuck with artists on death row? Good music is good music, point blank period. Yeah, Jarrell said, stuffing his mouth with his last cupcake. That's like when cats go, which one is better, DC Comics or Marvel? Son, everyone know Marvel is the illest, but you gotta respect Superman. I mean, Duke's an alien that can fly and carry buildings and shit. Steph smirked. So Tupac's an alien? He ain't from our world, Cordier said, laughing. Duke was from the future or something. Word, kid. See, because Superman was born on the planet Krypton, which is like light years ahead in the future. So he got all the powers beyond our human capabilities. His friends stare at him as if he had 5 heads. What? Cordier laughed. Son, I can't believe you guys out here on the block talking about comic books like a bunch of nerds. Shut your ass up, Jarrell snapped. Everybody reads comic books. So what you saying? Cordier challenged. Biggie was like Spider-Man or something? Yeah, well, except the part him being from Brooklyn. I mean, being from Queens and all. He was one of us, Steph added with a shrug. He looked out for his people. He was home. The boys looked up through the trees at home, Brevoort. Towering brown buildings, a busy hub full of life. Yo, son, let me hear a rhyme or something, Jarrell said. Out here all sad and shit. Steph smiled. All right, set it off. Jarrell smirked before covering his mouth and started beatboxing, Cordier already bobbing his head.
So he goes, he's nodding his head to the beat. Watch me smash it. He goes, disclaimer. Shout out to the actors on the audio book version of this story, but shout out to them. I'm sending nothing but positivity. This is how it should sound though. Lake 16. All right, so he goes, funny how these days you can't even view a casket of your favorite rapper without getting your ass kicked by the Jakes. That's harassment. And bastards try to chase. Ran out of breath. We ran out from death. Tried to Rodney King me. My peeps ran out like Steph. Felt my heart ran out my chest, but I'm blessed. Tell him King me. This is checkers, not chess. But we doing this for B.I.G. Bro compelled him to Spider-Man. Now I think I see why, G. Because it's all about them red and blues. He got caught up in that web, had the press confused, telling lies like the Daily Bugle, but ain't no J. Jonah Jameson, just some busters in Cali. Lames want to hate him. So today we rally. They ain't going to stop us. The year 97, and it ain't the same without you. So you going to hear this on the streets all day. Spread love is the Brooklyn.
Yay. Do you want to talk a little bit about actually how we like even did all this? Like the process of actually writing it?
This was such a seamless, genius process. It was so simple. It literally was Tiffany saying, hey, read these excerpts from the draft of the story. And also, can you proofread it while you're at it? Tell me if, there's some slang words or, things that might not be historically in scope. And then, just a lot of back and forth. Send in again. I'm West Coast based. I come to New York when I can. She's in Brooklyn, and I'm sending drafts and verses for the verse parts, poems for the poetry parts. As you read the book, you see there's little excerpts of like rhymes where they're going through Steph's books at points. But for the main performance verses, Tiffany gave me pretty much just like real basic premise. He said, when he freestyles, he sounds like Biggie because that's who he's influenced by. But at the same time, he's the skinny 16, 17-year-old kid who has his own style. So it's like, okay, his voice is not going to sound like Biggie, but his cadence will when he freestyles. And when he writes songs, more of him might come out because he's trying to carve his own niche. So all of that was interesting. The only part that kind of needed a lot of revision was the actual main song, which you'll see towards the end of the book, which was like a big deal because like all of this character awakening happens. This is also the source of a lot of the drama in the book. So there were like 5 versions of that song. I was going all over the place with it. Tiffany was like, make it triumphant, but make it about not snitching and about police and ills of the hood, but also make it fun. I'm like, what?
Oh, and I also said like, like keep the cursing down. And which is also like, I threw a lot of challenges at him to make this work. So it was actually kind of funny that we worked so well on this together because I was like, do all these things. And then I need it like tomorrow. And
the craziest part is doing that in the mind from the vantage point of a 16-year-old Brooklyn teen from the projects who probably curses all day, but these are still quintessentially good kids. Tiffany did a really great job of showing you that no matter their surroundings, these were good kids. Most of their parents raised them to actually not be afraid to snitch, not calling it snitch, but calling it caring about your community, right? Look out for your younger siblings, even though they annoy you, look out for them. So these are the morals that these kids, so they probably weren't your average stereotypical Brooklyn project kid. Like Tiffany said, this was about breaking down barriers. Veronica's one of my favorite characters for that reason, but doing it from that perspective, 16-year-old Brooklyn kid from the projects in 1998 with all those themes, who was influenced by Biggie. So like the slang, the references had to be accurate. This kid is talking about Averex jackets in some of these songs, and like Nick Van Exel, like somebody who was a big play on the Lakers at that time, because that was popular to do in rap. So
yeah. No, I think that was actually probably kind of like my favorite part about all this was actually doing like the research and making sure that everything was like super accurate, like looking up like old like Vibe magazines to be like, okay, who was on the cover this month? And if they got it in September, that means they actually have October's issue and who was in there and who was writing around that time. So we actually yeah, I had to verify with a lot of different people. I didn't want to mess it up because, you know, we get very sensitive about hip hop and history and how it's portrayed. So that was important for us to actually get right. And also like kind of remembering what slang we were using and when we stopped using it. So in the original draft of this book, we had the word dope in there. And then Malik was like, you know, we weren't saying that around that time. We like stopped by that point. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. But then there was another word, and now I'm blanking on what's the word that we were like, nah, were we using that anymore? Because there was a point where, you know, when a slang word or whatever like kind of hits the mainstream and like grandmas are saying it, that's when like typically kids in the hood
right, stop.
Yeah.
And then there's that point before it becomes mainstream where it's just used in certain regions. Like Brooklyn's famous for that. Brooklyn's famous for having their own stuff way before everyone else gets it. Like Sun came from Brooklyn.
Right.
And, you know, but yeah, I mean, you know, and listen, Tiffany is stubborn. For those of you who don't know, she's a writer, she's an artiste. But a few words still slipped in that I was like, I don't know about that, Tiffany. So we still, I think Gully is in there. I think Swag is in there. I was like, Swag.
Oh, there's no swag in there. Gully is in there. Gully is in there. And I think the probably one swag was actually from a hip hop song. Because we were saying that.
Nope.
Yes, we were saying.
I can tell you when Swag came in. But, you know, I have a typo in there, which it haunts me to this day, and it's my fault. So in the book, in Jasmine's, there's a part where Jasmine says, "I be 13," and it was not supposed to say that because it was written as I3, which is Bob Marley's background singer, but instead of spelling it out, I just wrote I3, and you know the editor took it as 13. So shout out to the editor. Shout out to myself for not thinking ahead to like really clarify that.
And it's fine. I think there's so many Easter eggs in this book too, that it's almost like, and I do this with all my books. I always put like little things in there that like either kids or adults are gonna get. And that's actually my favorite part is when they email or I get like a message to say, hey, does this mean this? I'm like, yes, it does. And you are like probably number 2 who figured that out. So that's actually also my favorite part. Do you want to do another one?
Yeah, I would like to do. Let me do the. You know, I never do the little rap that happens when they're reading the book, where Steph actually spells his like government name out.
Oh, what page is that?
That's gonna be the fun. We're gonna.
Oh, gosh.
Tiffany's gonna talk to the people while this happens.
While he finds that, does anyone have any questions? I don't know if I can. I think I could see it.
Yep, feel free. Let them fly.
Yeah. And sorry, if we're doing this split screen thing, so we're and you know, new technology, the future. So I'm looking.
We're social distancing.
Social distancing, yes.
We'd have to be this far apart even if we were both in Brooklyn. So
right.
Okay, it's going to be on page 252 for those of you following along.
Okay.
This is a scene where
you just go into it.
Oh, okay. Well, this is a scene where Jarrell, or is it Quadi? It's Jarrell. He finds one of Steph's old books under his bed. He looks through it before he leaves the house, and he sees that Steph wrote this little blurb that goes, "Stupid on the track, but still a tutor to you cats. I exude the gravitas to snatch fools from off of that pedestal. Now you should nap. High schooler, true I act. Old school like moving back to the future because the fact I'm not new, I'm 2 years past. Use an almanac. What's my name? I just spelled it out for you. Now do the math. And so the way it lines up, if you read it in the book, you'll see that every first letter of the rhyme spells Stefan's full name. Just a little writer fun there.
Yeah, a little fun. We entitled for a little fun. Any other one you want to read?
I will read. I always like reading Jasmine's rap.
Okay.
Spoiler for those of you who have not gotten that far in the book, there is a part where Jasmine raps and she actually rewrites lyrics from her brother that he had laying around, and they needed to finish this song. So she makes it her own. This is Jasmine. And quick part, earlier when Tiffany was reading, she read that part where they're like talking about Spider-Man being like Biggie and Tupac being like Superman. And she said, yeah, despite the fact that he's from Queens, which is like cardinal sin to compare Queens to Brooklyn. Is like only borough that's more of an like a rival to Brooklyn is Manhattan, where I'm from, Harlem all day. Shout out to Harlem. And so she starts off by saying, hold up, I brought Queens to a Brooklyn party. That's an oxymoron. Then she said, well, here's some more on who I be. Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa smiling. Mona Lisa with an afro of braids, Fulani, fine. Reading books in a Brooklyn lobby. So intrigued, you took up a new hobby. Other chicks got you hooked on a body. I got you hooked on phonics. Every little step, now you hooked like Bobby. Oh no. Damn, did I say that? New Bob Marley DJ, can you play that? Because I be I3. And I don't mean Iverson sneaker. No, I mean the keynote speaker. I step on the podium, break on linoleum, stepping all over that boys club sign with men only written on the banner. No, because this is going to be the anthem. I'll show you you can wear a skirt and still wear the pants, son. Everybody put your hands up. Ralph Ave, Fulton Ave, got to stand up. I said it backwards, but Fulton Ave, Ralph Ave, you got to stand up. And so when you hear the song that comes with the book, like it's said with like all the character that Jasmine's supposed to have on that, and you can still find that song on YouTube.
Yes. So Malik recorded this song with a lovely artist and one of our great little sisters.
Lorraine.
I was waiting for you to like pop in with her full name.
Yep, Lorraine.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say that. I'm sorry. And the song is actually available on YouTube. You can get to the link through my website. There's a lovely lyric music video to go along with it. It's probably like my favorite part of this whole process. Watching you guys record the song was dope. And like being in the studio and sort of kind of like vibing out to the way that this would actually happen in real life as well too. Same kind of situation where we're in a studio and we're all kind of like squished in there and trying to like make this magic happen, which is dope. So that part is also available as well too. And also just to plug in this, so since we are coming up on the anniversary of the book, the paperback copy of the book comes out May 19th. So that's a couple of weeks away. We're probably going to do another little like special live thing around then. Hopefully we actually will be outside by then, but we'll still gonna have our, cross country, virtual launch party for the paperback book. And love to take any like hip hop questions that you guys have. So that will also be a part of it, and probably we'll have some extra like content as well too to go along with the book.
Yeah, that'll most likely be like an IG live kind of thing where you can ask your comments and questions in real time. I'm gonna present the original version of that Jasmine verse that day, the one that was written by Steph. I'll be able to do some lyric breakdowns. We can listen to the song together on IG Live. Yeah. So
It's
it's
gonna
cool.
be like a
Tiffany,
concert party.
yeah, we'll have a whole party. Like Tiffany went back into her like director bag when we were in the studio. Somewhere this footage existing in the universe of Tiffany filming that whole process. And it was a cool day to see Tiffany break out her ring light and her tripod. I haven't seen her do that since Howard University. HU.
You know,
Shout out to
that's
the
so weird.
Bison.
That was actually weird to see on screen. Now that we're like, yeah. Anyway,
So
so if there's no other questions, I think we're gonna wrap up.
yeah,
Which I can't. I think that's yeah. So
yeah,
this was dope, guys. Thank you so much for checking us out. I like I said before, the paperback comes out May 19th. We should probably have a little like lunch party then. We'll send out details and let everyone know. Thank you, Virginia Children's Book Festival, for putting this whole lineup together with all authors that are coming onto Facebook and showing some love to all of our readers and kids, especially because I know we're all inside. I'm a big kid myself. We're all inside and we're all trying to learn, and we get to sort of interact with authors as much as possible, as much as we can. Please pick up Let Me Hear a Rhyme. Definitely, as Malik said, the audiobook is actually is dope. They have different characters, voices for each person, which is
the
also
patois wasn't that bad. The patois wasn't that bad.
yeah, no, it was good. I liked it. And also my next book after this is called Grown. That comes out September 15th of this year. And yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Virginia Children's Book Festival. Yep. And thank you.